Good day, good day.
Great to meet you
Great
in
to
person.
finally meet you in
eh.
person. This is the first time we're meeting each other. Several times over, we've shared the virtual stage on PSE's Campus Expo, PSE Investment Expo during the height of the pandemic. But this one is something fresh. This one is something fresh for both First Metro Sec, China Bank Securities, because we are not just going to talk about real estate investment trusts, the newest kid on the block, but we're also doing this live again. Such a breath of fresh air that we're doing this live, and we are at the showroom of the Seasons Residences. We're here because of our. I don't want to claim that it's because of us, but because they're our sister company, our real estate arm from the Metro Bank Group, and this is a Zen / Japanese / Asian type of theme, and I can't wait to tour you guys around. But first things first, let's talk about again the newest kid on the block. Let's talk about real estate investment trusts. So.
Yep. Okay, so I think first off, everyone's mind probably is what are real estate investment trusts, right? So how would you explain that to a layman?
When you talk about real estate investment trusts, if I'm supposed to sell, if I'm supposed to promote real estate trust investing to a regular Filipino, I'd probably say, it's one very affordable, convenient, and easy way for you to barge into real estate investing. And the good thing about that is without you having to break the bank. Because instead of you having to shell out hundreds of thousands of pesos, millions of pesos, just for you to get your hands on a vacant piece of land, just for you to get your hands on a bungalow house and lot, it gives you co-ownership to establish real estate income-generating real estate assets of your trusted developers, your real estate companies. From a research standpoint, because again, the good thing about this is I'm from the sales side of things, and you're from the research side of things, and our outputs they're supposed to really mesh together. From a research side of things, Ras, how can you inspire? How can you encourage? How can you motivate Filipinos to at least consider real estate investment trusts to form part of their portfolio?
Okay, so I think first off, a lot of people think of real estate investment as buying a condo and then renting it out, right? The problem with that, and as you mentioned, is that it's like millions of bucks, right? And you rent it out for 1,000 per square. So I think from our end, of course, we love numbers. So that we usually think of real estate investment trusts as yield. How much are you going to make in compared to your capital?
That's right.
So on our end, we think about that, and of course, that competes with a lot of things, right? So the good thing, as you mentioned, is it's affordable, right? Instead of buying it yourself, you buy part of it, and then you get to share in the income, but you don't have to run it. I think that's the good thing, right? And I think the other thing is that real estate investment trusts, these are companies that have multiple types of assets in them. A lot of them have offices, some have retail, right? You have your malls in there. Your biggest developers are in there as well. These are names that you know, like the likes of Ayala Land is there, Mega World is there. So these are things we're familiar with, consumers are familiar with. We go to their malls, we know how it looks like, we know that we consume, we know that we buy, and all of that flows into the income of REITs. And spending there and then investing in them kind of makes you come full circle.
That's right.
That you enjoy the benefit of what you're spending.
So I think, in other words, what Ras is saying here is you get income from several sources, several streams of income. You get income from their office rental, from their mall rental income. Some REITs, which we're probably going to discuss in a few while. Some REITs are actually even making money off renewable energy. So again, that's the beauty of it all. So when you talk about real estate investing, we're not just going to talk about REITs per se, but when you talk about real estate investing kasi, the problem is, again, barrier to entry.
Pretty usually high. Yeah.
Usually high. It's not something that you get to, promote to fresh grads because, again, we're not going to speak the same language. Oh, let's do real estate investing.
Yeah.
We have yet to, even assemble our emergency fund. I think when it comes to real estate investing kasi, it's also very important that we are reminded about what we call phantom costs. It's one thing that you actually acquire a real estate property, but it's also another that you keep it in tip-top shape. So you look at having extra funds for repairs, maintenance. Ngayon, rainy season, diba? Parang one small crack, one small leak can actually bring lots and lots of damage, especially if it's unattended. You need to look into insurance. Again, especially in the Philippines, where we're in the Pacific Ring of Fire, madalas yung earthquake, we're frequently visited by typhoons, diba? So you need to be covered for those acts of nature. And you also have from time to time you need to pay your amilyar, real property tax. And if you're the type of homeowner na gusto niya parating up to date yung look ng bahay, you have to have funds for remodeling, renovation.
Exactly.
I talked about those stuff because, again, I'd like to ask you, Ras, from a research standpoint, are those things something your regular Joe, something your regular REIT investor need to keep in mind na parang, oy, if I co-own, if I invest in Ayala, if I invest in Mega World, if I invest in Robinson's Land REITs, pag kailangan nilang magpa-repair, baka kailangan pa akong mag-share, diba? Are those things REIT investors need to shoulder?
That's a valid concern, right? I mean, like, what do you have to think about?
Yeah.
Are there added costs to it, right? So, on the first end, if you need, kailangan pa ba ako ilabas and all that? No, that's a good thing, right? These REIT companies are run by property management companies that are usually owned by the developer.
That's right.
So, you don't have to think about it. All you have to do is buy it and then you get a share of the income, right? So if you want something that's a little more hassle-free, wala ka na masyadong iisipin, you would want to go to REITs, right? And the good thing there is, if you feel like, or if you have, like you mentioned before, if you have additional income that you saved up, that you want to invest, you could always incrementally dadagdagan mo unti-unti and then build that up, right? As opposed to your traditional investing na kailangan isang buong unit yung bilhin mo and then isipin mo lahat, right? And then to your point on phantom costs, for here, they're very minimal, if ever. These are just your transaction fees relating to buying them. But those are much smaller naman compared to what you would end up paying for buying real property yourself, right? So I think the other side of things, is what would you think makes a REIT interesting, or what, like, there are options around, like, what would make one stand out, and why would investors need to think about that?
I think from a market scan standpoint, parang they're very much different, when it comes to their source of income. Mamaya nga pag-usapan natin, may isa pa nga doon into renewable energy, So I think from my personal experience, I'm also into real estate investing. From condos to ngayon, medyo ang thing ko ngayon is farm lot investing. But I brought that up because again, when you talk about condos, when you talk about farm lots, when you talk about building, selling, fixing something and then selling it for a profit, there's this level of stress. I think, as yung mga viewers natin, yung mga followers ng Property Access PH who'll be able to, eventually watch this episode. Stressful for you to move in, stressful for you to have something constructed, have something remodeled, renovated. Ibang usapan din yung ikaw yung makikipag-usap sa tenants, Again, I brought this up because from Ras's response kanina and from what we know about REITs, these are things that you actually just you know, set aside.
Don't
Because
think
wala
about
na, hindi
that
mo na
much.
pag-usapan, hindi na natin kailangan pag-usapan. No need for you to think about your rapport with your tenants because none of those things, di ba? Bahala na si Ayala dyan, bahala na sila Robinsons dyan, di ba? So essentially, REITs also allow Filipino investors like you and me to somehow outsource yung ganong mga stressful activities, stressful parts of the process to your property managers, to your admin managers, and to a certain degree to your fund managers, diba? And I think yun din yun. Parang I talked about property managers, admin managers, and fund managers. Ano yung difference nitong REITs, Ras? No? Again, from a research standpoint, ano yung difference nito from your regular funds? Kasi pinag-usapan natin yun, mga managers, admin, property, and fund managers. Ano yung difference ng REITs versus your typical UITF, mutual fund manager?
Okay, so I guess similarities first, no?
Sure.
Para lang ma-establish natin, right? So UITF, usually it's a pooled investment, right? And then you buy a unit, and then may presyo yung unit na yun, right? For REITs, it's similar. Like you have an asset pool, and then you have a share, and then you get income on that share, right? So I think that's what's the same. But I think yun nga, the difference primarily is REITs, it's direktang naka-connect dun sa asset, right? Dun sa leasing asset. So if it's a mall or a pool of malls or offices, diretso yung baba ng income, right? As opposed to your pooled invest UITFs, for example, kunwari stock UITF or bond UITF. You need to be able to, for stocks, either dividends, if they pay out dividends, or tumataas yung presyo, right? And those are driven by different things.
That's right.
So the risk profile is different. And then REITs naman, since it's renta, landlord, diba? And then, as you mentioned, 90% dividend payout. So they have to do this. They have to share their income. So you get a sense that it's a little bit more stable, right? So a lot of people are actually thinking of REITs as potentially an alternative to, I guess, bonds. Or time deposits. TDs are very hot now, diba? So I guess it's a mix of that, no? You have that portion. The other portion is, of course, there is some capital gain flavor to it. Capital gains na in the sense na your REIT companies, your property development companies can increase the amount of assets that they put into that, right? So I think, for example, the Ayala REIT, no? One of the Duretas is there. Eventually, there are other malls in their portfolio that they can put into that, and that's gonna add value to the REIT that they have.
Something we've talked about behind the scenes kanina when we were preparing Ras, no? Parang yung Ayala REIT, of course. Ayala REIT, they're the pioneers. The first REIT in the Philippines, record-breaking. No? Again, it's a milestone. The REIT law in the Philippines, it has been there
for a while.
10 years,
before,
a decade before
the first
before
one
we were
came
able
out.
to get things across. No? But right now we have what, 7 REITs in the market. But Ayala REIT has always been at the forefront. Can you talk about Ayala REIT as far as their plans are concerned? What are we supposed to expect from Ayala REIT as an investor, both as an existing investor and as a potential investor? Parang medyo pricey si Ayala REIT compared to others nominally, peso value. But why? Ano sa palagay mo? Bakit nape-preserve niyo yung value niya? And why do we need to look at Ayala REIT as still a favorite in the market, in the REIT space?
Okay. So, as you mentioned, they're the first ones, no? So, obviously, when you're the first one, you have that confidence. Part of that confidence is your assets, yung laman niya, is those should be pretty strong, right? The good thing with Aland, or the REIT, their REIT, is that it had offices, and the occupancy, the level of, kasi syempre office, like the space naman hindi siya 100% occupied, right? Although there are some REITs that are 100% occupied, right? So usually they're in the mid 90s or low 90s. So that's pretty strong, right? I think with developers, inuna nila yung office REITs.
That's right.
Right? So they put offices in first because they're more stable, diba? In the sense na you get a rent, isang rate, next year escalate, right? Tataas. As opposed to retail, usually when you add the mall, may percent of sales yan, diba?
That's right.
If lumagpas yung sales mo at a certain level, then yung rental na nakuha ko sa'yo is already a percent of yung sales mo, right? And of course, we knew that in the pandemic, it was hard. It was a recovery for your retail shops to get there, no?
In fact, sorry to cut you off, but in fact, during the pandemic, they had this rent reprieve type of setup. That instead of you having to pay out your regular monthly contract
rental payments,
you just need to shell out a certain percentage of how much you're getting for that particular month. Kasi nga, in as much as we'd like to promote, going to the malls for you to get your necessities, diba? Parang it's going to be very impossible for you to magically go back to the pre-pandemic levels kasi we have MECQ, ECQ. You can't populate the mall sa 100% ng capacity niya. You just need to go 30%, 50% max, no? So I think it's actually a good point na your stream of income, most of them will definitely come from the office rental space. But yung increments nun, it's something set in stone na. Kasi again, from rent reprieve to your back to regular contract programming, so to say. Another question, Ras, no? So when you talk about the health of the REIT market in the Philippines, of course, napag-usapan natin kanina, medyo late in the game tayo, late bloomer. If we're going to compare our REIT industry versus the likes of course, Japan's, the Singapore's, US, very mature to the point na even
billboard pinagkakakitaan.
Exactly. I was about to go there. Tayo yung of course pinagkakitaan yung billboards, but hindi siya pasok sa REIT income eh.
Wala pa.
My question is dito sa Philippines, no, since we're about to go 3 years na, mag-celebrate na si Ayala REIT ng 3rd anniversary niya ng listing. Ano yung nakikita mo na points to improve on sa space natin, sa REIT space? And then sino yung, again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but being a research guy, I think covered nyo naman to. Can you give us your top 3, top 4 REIT recommendations for our viewers out there? Okay.
Sige, hard question, no? So, as much as putting in the spot, but I think with the recommendations, no, it's important to look at the health, right? So the health is measured usually through 2 main ways, or sorry, 3 na lang. One is occupancy, like how much of the space is occupied, meaning like anong percent yung nagbabayad, and next is what price they're paying, right? The rent per square meter, right? As we know, right now, since you have too much supply in the office space, rental rates have come down for office, right? Some markets more than others. So that's why that ties in well with what our recommendations are, right? So in terms of rental rates per square, the stronger ones that have recovered already, the likes of Makati, Ortigas, and BGC, right? So those 3 markets, you can, and then kind of zoom out, which REITs have exposure to these markets or more exposure to these markets. Of course, you have your Ayala Land REIT, that's REIT. You have Robinson's RL Commercial, so RCR. You also have MREIT, Mega World, right? So I think those, in that sense, have proved to be relatively healthy, stable throughout the past 2-3 years that they've been listed, right? And then, of course, there are other REITs, and this will tie in well with what you were saying kanina.
Of course, go ahead.
There are REIT companies that don't just lease out office space or mall space, they're also leasing out land. Right? So one of them, and I think this is what you were alluding to kanina, is C-REIT, no?
Citicorp.
So Citicorp REIT is tied with Citicorp Renewables, which develops solar farms across the country, no? So C-REIT is the REIT entity. Siya yung may hawak ng lupa, or at least leasehold rights, and then it leases out the land to the related party, which is Citicorp, no? And Citicorp naman generates electricity from the plants that are there. So I think in that regard, no, since it's a land lease, it's 100% occupied the whole time, right, for what, 40 years, right? And they also generate incremental income. There's a variable portion from the power sales, right? So, and I think that's good because REIT companies is more than just a property investment right? It's also you, if you want to participate in the green, strong growth green sector of renewable energy, then you could also gain exposure to that.
That's right.
Diba? So, how about I don't know about you, but what REITs in general appear to be something good that investors could consider, but obviously in terms of maturity, we're not there yet. And I think part of that is getting it out there, what are REITs and exactly why this is very important, right? For people to kind of familiarize themselves with how REITs are.
That's actually a common denominator between China Bank Securities and First Metro Securities as far as our recommendations in the REIT space go. We also like Ayala REIT, we also like Robinson's Land REIT, we also like Mega World REIT and C-REIT for the same reasons. You talk about C-REIT then kasi it's a feel-good kind of investment because you make money off 100% occupied land, and you're investing responsibly in green facilities, no. Another thing I'd like to get your thoughts on, Ras, kasi we talked about the importance of the office space. But during the pandemic, I think again, you, me, several people following Property Access PH, watching this video, at some point we got used to working from home. I think you know where I'm going to. So during the height of the pandemic, we got used to working from home. Zoom, MS Teams, everything virtual. Now that we're slowly, a couple of weeks back, President Marcos already lifted the state of emergency tagging in the entire Philippines. So that means we are somehow officially or unofficially
back to normal.
It's the post-pandemic. My question is, with that in mind, are you still seeing this work from home initiative posing threat on office rental space requirement?
Okay, that's a very valid point. Work from home and hybrid is here to stay, right? Whether we like it or not. So it's just a matter of what companies are doing to address this. Obviously, part of it is talent pool. A lot of people consider the availability of hybrid and work from home options in terms of employment opportunities, right? And I think that feeds into a lot of how these big companies, your BPOs, your big firms, your mga HQs, right? On how they'll expand their space. Ideally, you'd want them to be in the office because you control the environment in terms of cybersecurity, all of the safeguards are there, right? So ideally, you'd want that. But syempre, you have to think about the cost to replace somebody.
That's right.
Right. So I think in terms of the industry, you're seeing a lot of supply coming in. Kasi again, buildings get completed in 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
You had a stoppage ng pandemic. So some buildings that they started building in 2019, 18 are just starting to come online now. And if there's a lot of supply and demand, syempre, pag masyado maraming bakante, you either have to compete in terms of price, so bababa mo, or you stay where you are, but your occupancy, syempre, it's softer, diba? Kasi if you're conscious about price as a company, then I'd buy or I'd rent a place that's cheaper, no? So I think that is a concern now, but eventually, with some markets recovering, like the Makati, BGC, and Ortigas markets recovering, it should pick up, right? Eventually naman, in terms of working from the office, like we've seen it in the US, right? Some big companies, Twitter, Google, wanting their workforce to come back into the office. Requiring, right?
CEOs, requiring people to come back or else. Diba?
Yeah. So I think eventually we could think that could happen, right? I think the rise of cybersecurity costs factor into that as well. So if the question is, would that make REITs less viable? I don't think so. Right? It's just on the developers on what they'll put in. That's why I think they're putting in malls.
That's right.
Kasi malakas yung malls ngayon. As you can see.
Regardless if you work from home or you report to the office, sooner or later, at some point in time, tomorrow, over the weekend, you're going to have to visit the mall.
Oh yeah.
Diba? Parang ganun. So,
diba? So
really makes perfect sense.
Yes.
So I think from that perspective, it's really important that we understand. Again, it's all about financial literacy. The reason why we're doing things like this is because we want to get a message across. You don't just decide. You don't just you don't just make a financial decision just because people are talking about it online. You want to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. You want to make sure you understand that these are things that I perfectly understand. So just so I don't put the blame on somebody else if my investment goes south. Another thing I'd like to get across is, again, the fact that when it comes to real estate investment trusts, you said it perfectly kanina. Parang it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid between your property investments. Because again, you practically make money off of rent, off of these solid structure. But the good thing there is you don't need to buy that solid structure. You don't need to shell out millions. So that's property investing for you. Another component is stock market investing, because essentially you are buying shares of those solid structures. Another thing is bond market investing.
A little bit,
because apart from capital appreciation, so you basically get two streams of income potentially. Capital appreciation and your regular dividends. 90%. So may batas. That's just a good thing about that. It's not something out of the generosity of the board of directors. There's really a REIT law, which states that 90% of your distributable income, guys, you should share it with your investors by way of cash dividends. So simply put, you just pretty much wake up every quarter looking forward to getting cash from your REIT investments. I wanted to share those things with you and our viewers, because from my personal experience, kasi again, I'm dealing with retail clients, with corporate clients, also Insti clients. There's actually this client of mine several months ago. We had coffee. She talked about her intent to, Andoy, I have extra funds. I have a vacant lot. It's pretty sizable. So what I'm thinking is the reason why I invited you over for coffee is because I want to get your thoughts. So palagyan ko ba to ng 3 to 4 door apartment with this much money, or ano sa palagay mo? So parang nothing's set in stone, wala pa naman, but I think she values my personal and professional opinion. So parang sabi ko, why don't you consider investing in real estate investment trusts? So instead of you having to deal with the construction issues, instead of you having to deal with contractors, instead of you having to deal with tenants, instead of you having to deal with your permits, whatnot, it's just a click of a button, several clicks of a button. And then instead of you having to receive monthly payments from your tenants, you just need to wait a while, because income, your cash divs, it gets to you per quarter. So I think, again, it's also very important that you don't just buy into the idea, but you also share and inform the people, your clients, the potential investors, of the pros and cons. Something that we've discussed a while back. The pros and cons of getting into REITs, of why you need to consider REITs, diba? Kasi there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all investment kasi.
That's true.
And I think that's something that we can all agree on. Kasi the reason why we keep on telling our clients, the reason why we are always highlighting during our Finlit programs, you need to diversify. You need to try other investment vehicles, because again, this will probably bring you money during good years, but during crisis years, parang forget about stocks.
Yeah.
No? So that's the important thing about making sure that you have several investment vehicles in your portfolio, so that whatever happens, at least there's something na will get you by.
Yeah.
So
I think that's interesting for you to bring up. No, I think you need to look at REIT investments as part of a portfolio, and
That's
put
right.
that perfectly. No?
Yeah.
I think for Property Access PH's clients, no. So I think mainly what they're looking at is real estate investments, diba? So part of that is buying a condo, then getting yield. So parang if your per square cost is around 250 to 300, and then at 1,000 pesos per square na rental,
That's right.
it's around 5%, right? You can get the same yield with a REIT, right? I think even higher for some, right? 7 to the 8%. So I think that plays a big part. In terms of alternative investments in the real estate space, potentially there are some hotels that sell their units, and then you don't live in it, or you don't move into it, but you kind of get a share similar to
Like
how
share,
REITs, yeah.
yeah.
So there's also that, and then same with what our clients are asking. Does it make sense for me to get REITs when I can get the same, or like other bonds or fixed income investments that have yields that are comparable, right? So I guess first, you can't, if marami kang pera, then it'll be harder because you can only get so much of each, diba? But if you're starting out, right, I think the good thing with REITs also is that the barrier to entry is very low.
Super.
Right? In terms of minimum investment,
3,000, 5,000, you're good.
yeah, right? As opposed to somebody who wants to buy bonds na about 50,000,
That's right.
100,000, right? So I think that's a good thing to highlight as well. No? But I think one of the last bits siguro is, how would you think, or what would you say if somebody asks you, when is the best time to buy into REITs?
Ooh, pretty tough
But
question.
yeah.
Diba? But again, when you talk about the timing of it all, no matter how great you are, no matter how multi-awarded, you are as an individual, as a firm, you just can't get it right 100% of the time.
Yep.
That's why what I keep on telling guys, what I keep on telling clients, even kids, no, because again, I do bespoke financial literacy programs. If you can't perfectly time the market by buying it at the perfect opportune time, what we can probably do is, again, make sure that we are regularly buying investment vehicles, regardless of your weapon of choice. Again, stocks, bonds, real estate investment trusts. For as long as you keep on adding a little bit of something to your portfolio every sweldo, every time you get something, every time you get paid, diba? It will do you good. Kasi again, that's you trying to build on your war chest, one sweldo at a time, one payday at a time. Kasi that's also the beauty of looking at it small chunks at a time. Kasi one of the most misunderstood concepts of investing, lalo na sa mga Pilipino, because again, this is what I do day in, day out. One of the most misunderstood concepts, Filipinos think that for them to be able to start investing, they need a huge sum of money. Ayun. We need to demystify that. No?
Yep.
They need a huge sum of money. Real estate, of course, but again, that's why we're talking about REITs.
Yeah.
You want to make money off real estate property, pero wala pa tayong malaking sum of money, then the next best thing would be REITs. No? Ganun din when it comes to investing. You don't need a huge amount of money. Siguro from before. That's the case why back in the day, some 20 years back, the rich are the only ones getting richer because the rich are the only ones who can afford to invest.
That's true.
But right now, because of the efforts of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, our regulators, the Philippine Stock Exchange, they're trying to bank the unbanked. They're trying to encourage people. 97% of Filipinos aren't investing, so that's something we need to look into. That means a huge majority of Filipinos don't know where to start. If you're going to ask them, if we want to ask them, gusto mo ba mag-invest? They'll probably say yes, but they don't know where to start. And again, these are the things the reason why we do things like this, because we want to make sure they get started the right way. We want to make sure that they start their investing journey the right way. We want to make sure that they understand what they're getting themselves into. And again, this actually one of the best ways for them to learn investing, property investing at that, through Property Access PH. So there you have it. Again, thank you for joining us. This has been Andro Beltran from First Metro Securities Brokerage Corporation. I'm heading both the business development, market education, and most recently our OFW desk. This is what I do day in, day out. I jump from campus to campus, office to office, island to island, and sometimes even country to country, doing financial literacy programs. And I'm super stoked with the opportunity to collab with the Property Access PH for us to be able to educate more and more Filipinos about the importance of financial literacy, about the ins and outs of investing, and about the merits of property investing. So I'm encouraging all of you guys to like Property Access PH's social media channels, and of course subscribe to their YouTube channel for you guys to be able to get first dibs on this episode.
Hi everyone, this is Rastine Mercado, Head of Research of China Bank Securities. We recently launched our retail trading platform. That's China Bank Sec Online.ph. So please feel free to check that out. The first step to investing in REITs is to get an account open with REIT accredited brokers, and there are only a few of us. So hopefully, please pick ours. And the good thing with having a broker is that you please feel free to ask them, your sales team, the research guys, what they think. We are more than happy to have a conversation with you, talk to you about what you need or how this investment would fit into your portfolio. Our lines are always open, and please like, subscribe, and share this video, and follow Property Access PH's social media channels for the latest when it comes to these types of videos, and of course to other investment opportunities.